Hey, what's up folks? How's it going? This is Waj. Hope you guys are all doing well. So I've been playing with the new Surface Pro 4 lately, and I've been really impressed with it. I think it's a fantastic laptop replacement tablet, and if you're in the market for a new portable computer, I think this is a really top contender, which brings us to the modern dilemma that's plagued mankind for the last couple of years, and that is, what should you get for $1,000? Should you get the new Microsoft Surface Pro with the new and improved type cover, or should you get one of the most popular laptops of all time, the 13.3-inch MacBook Air? Now, if you're interested in seeing how these two computers compare against each other in terms of specifications, values, and capabilities, stay tuned and let's find out which one's best. Now, firstly, what we're comparing specifically is the 2015 version of the 13-inch MacBook Air, which retails for about $999, and it comes with the Core i5 processor, 4GB of RAM, and 128GB of really fast PCIe-based solid-state memory. Now, the new Surface Pro 4 is highly configurable, but to keep things as economical as possible, we've actually chosen the baseline configuration, which retails for $899, and that comes with a Core M3 processor, which is slightly lower spec than what we have on the MacBook. If you do want the Core i5, you are going to have to pay another $100 for that. But if you are curious to see what the performance is like on the M3 processor compared to the MacBook, we're actually going to do some benchmarking later on in this video. But in terms of RAM, you have 4GB on this baseline configuration, much like you do on the MacBook, and we have 128GB solid state memory as well. Now, physically speaking, certainly the MacBook Air is going to be the larger of the two because it does have the larger overall screen size. Furthermore, in terms of thickness, you're also going to notice that the Surface Pro 4 with even the type cover is significantly thinner than the Air. Additionally, in terms of weight, the Surface Pro 4 is almost half the weight of the MacBook Air, which is not surprising considering the Surface is more in a tablet form factor than anything else, so it's certainly going to be more portable. Now, in terms of build quality, I think both of them are really on par with each other. The MacBook Air has a unibody aluminum construction, which is impeccably designed and extremely well made. The Surface Pro 4 is in the same league when it comes to build quality and design. The actual body itself is made out of a magnesium alloy, so that's why it's so light to begin with, and it has a very sturdy and hefty feel, even considering the fact that it has that kickstand. Now, in terms of ports and connectivity options, the Air has two USB 3.0 ports, a single Thunderbolt 2 connection for high-speed data transferring as well as high-resolution display output, and we have an SD card slot reader. Now, you have all the essential connections you need on the Surface Pro 4. You have one full-size USB 3.0 connection, as well as a mini DisplayPort connection for outputting high-resolution video on an external monitor. Underneath the kickstand, you still have that micro SD card slot, which is excellent for expanding your internal memory if you like. And last but not least, we have the Surface Pen, which is essential to this device, and you have a little magnetic area on the side of the Surface tablet where it can live most of the time, which is a very nice integration. Now, in terms of cameras, the MacBook Air has been using the same old 720p camera for years and years. Although it works, it's a more functional device than anything else. The cameras that we have on the Surface are actually really nice. You have 5 megapixels front-facing camera and an 8 megapixel rear-facing cameras. Both can do 1080p video, which is always a nice feature if you do a lot of video conferencing or if you want to take high-resolution photos with your computer. Now, moving on, probably one of the most biggest concerns that somebody will have coming from a traditional laptop to the Surface Pro 4 is, can you use it as a dedicated laptop to get some serious work done? And that means, what is the performance like on the new Surface Pro 4 type cover? And after several weeks of usage, I have to say that the new keyboard that they designed for this new type cover is absolutely fantastic. It's very similar in terms of the overall dimensions that you would find on a traditional chiclet keyboard like on the MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro. So it feels very responsive, very mechanical, very tactile. You have a decent amount of key travel, and also the key spacing is very comfortable as well to type on for long periods of time. Additionally, it's fully LED backlit like we have on the MacBook Air, so in terms of most things, both keyboards are kind of on par with each other, which is really great to see. Now, the trackpad on the Surface Pro 4 is kind of a different story. Although it's been increased in terms of size compared to the previous generation computers, it's still not up to the experience you get with the MacBook Air, certainly with the 13.3 edition, which has a very large trackpad that's extremely responsive, and the hardware and software integration is absolutely very harmonious. Now, the tracking performance on on the Surface Pro 4 is decent, but in terms of scrolling capabilities and overall response time, especially to some multi-touch, it's just not as fluid and as dynamic as the experience you get with the MacBook. At this point, they need to do some software updates and some firmware updates to kind of fix some of these issues, but at this point, your experience is not going to be the same when tracking with the trackpad on the Surface Pro 4 compared to the Air. Now, that being said, one of the great things about the Surface Pro 4 is that it's also a virtual clipboard, so you can basically use that Surface Pen to do all your precision-oriented tasks, and it's great for artists and for folks that want to write stuff down directly onto the display. And when you're using the pen, it feels very realistic and extremely responsive. It actually has over 1,000 levels of pressure sensitivity, so everything feels very dynamic, almost to the point where you feel like you're writing on a physical piece of paper. In addition to that, Microsoft is actually employing their Pixel Sense technology, which actually can detect what's being contacted on the screen, whether that's the pen itself or your fingers. So based on what specific object is making contact with the display, it'll actually respond accordingly. For example, if you want to enter some text in a text box, you can actually touch that region with your finger and it'll pull up a virtual keyboard. When you do that same command using the pen, in that instance, it won't pull up the keyboard, which does make sense. Now moving forward, let's talk about the displays that comes in both machines. Now in terms of actual native resolution, you're looking at about 1440 by 900 on the MacBook Air, which is fairly low resolution compared to the 2736 by 1824, which gives you a PPI count of about 267 versus you're looking at about 127 PPI on the MacBook Air. So in terms of the actual viewing experience, it's pretty much a 9-day difference. The Surface Pro 4 blows the MacBook Air out of the water, and since the Air is using a TN panel, the color rendition is not that good, especially at off angles, versus you can pretty much look at the display on the Surface Pro 4 at any angle and at any vantage point with minimal color shifts, and the overall display experience you get on the Surface Pro 4 is way better than anything you're going to get on the MacBook Air at this point. Okay, so let's actually now move on and talk about the internal differences between the two, specifically when it comes to the benchmark results that we've done. Now, the first thing we did is ran Cinebench R15, which is going to test out our CPU capabilities on both computers. Now, the M3 processor, the baseline configuration of the Surface Pro 4, got about 212 points versus you're looking about 259 points on the Core i5 processor. We get on the baseline configuration of the 13-inch MacBook Air. Additionally, if we review the results of the Geekbench 3 benchmark, you can see in both single-core and multi-core scenarios, the MacBook Air is certainly the faster computer with that higher spec CPU. Additionally, in terms of the graphical performance, if we review the Heaven benchmark set to 1440 by 900 medium detail settings, we also get a higher FPS score on the Air with its integrated 6000 series graphics, which gets about 18 average frames per second, and the integrated HD 515 graphics we have on the Surface Pro 4 baseline configuration scored about 16.1 average frames per second. Now, even though the Core M3 processor on the Surface Pro 4 is slower than the Air, I do have to emphasize the point in every day-to-day use in terms of web browsing applications, of video playback, and even some multimedia photo editing applications such as Photoshop. If you do any of those things on a light to moderate basis, you're definitely going to have no problem with the specification that we've chosen for the Surface Pro 4. Sure, it's always nice to have the faster CPU, and it becomes essential if you do any kind of serious multimedia editing or any kind of really intense CPU or GPU based application, and you're definitely going to want to spec up your Surface in those regards. But for most people that just want to do some general work on their computer using the Microsoft Office suite, or just a web browsing, or even doing a little bit of light media editing, it's definitely capable of doing that, and you can even do so on the baseline configuration that we have over here. Now, moving on, in terms of internal storage, both actually have 128 gigabyte solid state memory. Now, in order to test the performance out of these two, I basically transferred a 10.6 gigabyte file from a USB 3 thumb drive to the desktop on both computers, and on the MacBook Air, that transfer only took about 38 seconds, and it took about 1 minute 2 seconds on the Surface Pro 4. So in terms of the read and write performance, you're definitely looking at a faster machine with the MacBook in this case. Now, additionally, just for fun, let's actually do a quick boot up test to see which computer boots up into the OS faster. Now moving on, the last thing we're going to talk about is the battery performance of both these two computers. And in order to test out the battery, I just did a simple video playback test where I set the brightness to about halfway on both computers, played the same exact video clip on loop, and just let them do their thing until they both died off. After a couple of hours, here are the results of the battery drain test. The MacBook Air very impressively got 13 hours 41 minutes versus you're looking at about 7 hours 38 minutes on the Surface Pro 4. Now I did do several discharge and recharge cycles on the Surface Pro 4, so this is not a fresh battery test straight out of the box. This battery has been kind of broken in. Perhaps later on it'll get better down the road, but generally speaking, the battery performance is definitely not that impressive compared to what we have on the MacBook Air. But really, on that, guys, that's really it. Hopefully this video helped you out in some way. If you're interested in anything, check out the description down below for more information about all the products we talked about in this video. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. That helps us out tremendously. And also check out some of our other comparisons. We actually did a couple of comparisons with the new Surface Book, which is a pretty cool computer as well. So definitely check those out if you haven't already. But other than that, thanks again for watching. We'll see you later. Take care.